This has happened to me multiple times, and I'm just fed up. I'm done. I'm not taking on any more business from any realtors, from anyone. I don't care if you were my best friend's friend, sister, brother, cousin. I have my ways, you have your ways, and if they don't align, we're moving on. Welcome back to another episode of the Transaction Care Podcast. My name is Lillian Hernandez, your host and resident care coordinator, but you can call me Lily like the flower because we are learning and growing together. My goal with each episode is to demystify the business of real estate and leave you empowered to start your own journey today. So I'm just going to jump straight into today's episode. I'm coming off of this major adrenaline rush of recording a previous interview with Violetta Sandoval, host of the Money Tuesday podcast. So this episode is inspired by that conversation. And one of the topics we discussed was bad realtors and some of the aspects of real estate that people don't like to talk about, particularly the bad side, right? All we hear is, oh, I made X amount of commission. I 10X'd my profits. I made $100,000 in 30 days. But is that truly realistic? Yes and no. But throughout that process, are you being represented properly? Are you being represented well? Do you know the role of a realtor? Do you know the importance of having a realtor and why you're paying this person a major part of the commission to help you buy or sell your home? So let's just jump straight into it. And I want to give you guys just some tips from my perspective. I worked in the real estate industry for 2 decades. That's a long time. And I've had my experiences working with great realtors and then just flat out bad realtors that probably should not have ever been in this industry to begin with. Now, everyone's experience is subjective and it can vary from person to person. So, whatever your goals and your desired outcome is in this process, when you are choosing a realtor, make sure they align with your personal values and what you want out of this experience and what you are looking for in a home or how you want to sell your home. And overall, just truly advocating for yourself throughout this whole process. So, how do you know when you're dealing with a bad realtor? So, I'm just going to go through 5 basic tips. I feel like this is going to be a good conversation starter for future interviews and future videos, future interviews as well, because we've all, for those that work in real estate, we've all encountered at least one bad seed and it just left this huge impact on you and who you no longer want to work with and how you judge or gauge the types of people you want in your circle. So, for starters, let's go with poor communication skills. So, you definitely want to be talking regularly with your realtor. It doesn't have to be every day necessarily, but you definitely want to have access to them. If a realtor tells you, oh, you can never call me, you can never text me, red flag. I need to get a red flag and just wave it, right? So if they tell you, oh, I only talk between these hours, I mean, yes, I'm all for having boundaries, but at the same time, realtors sign up for a 24/7 working hour period, right? And of course, if you establish boundaries, I respect it. But oftentimes, buyers, sellers, investors, they don't have the 9 to 5 hours open to just talk on the phone about their money or the status of a home sale. So if a realtor right off the bat is telling you, do not contact me, only talk to escrow or my transaction coordinator, that is a red flag. Major, major red flag. Next, they lack professionalism. Now, this word could be a little conflicting, a little controversial. You know, what is professionalism? What does that even mean? How do you define it? Again, subjective. But if you run into a realtor that maybe is not dressed for the occasion, or maybe they are being rude to the other agent, or they're being rude to you, or, and I get it, because if you call at the last minute and your realtor is at the beach, um, wanting to just hang out with their family, but you need them to show you a house, I'm not going to judge my realtor if they're wearing beach clothes to show me a house. Like, that's not going to change the perception of how I buy or sell a home. But if they're showing up and just disregarding you, because professionalism could just mean simple manners, right? How they dress is up to you and how you define as professional, but ultimately it's how they conduct themselves in a way that when they're dealing with you as a client or other people on the other side, do you really want to work with a jerk? No. So you have to stand up for yourself and say, hey, I don't agree with your behavior. What's going on? Are you okay? Are you having a bad day? Or is this how you always are? If so, you're out of here, right? So next up, pushy or aggressive behavior. I have witnessed many realtors getting a deal, signing a contract, and one, going back to communication skills, never talking to their client throughout the whole transaction. But I've also heard horror stories of realtors pushing clients to make higher bids or to take out bigger loans just so they could get a bigger commission. And you have to really, really just be firm in your decision and knowing your numbers, because when you get put into these situations, whether you're on the buying or seller end, you don't want to be uncomfortable or felt pressured into doing something you weren't even prepared for, or they didn't explain to you properly why this needs to happen. Or if you're not ready to sign a contract, you can change your mind at any point in time. You could be closing the deal, and if you're willing to lose your deposit to get out of a deal, and your realtor is pressuring you like, no, 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 we got to close, but something happened, maybe you lost your job, or maybe you have to move, and all of a sudden you don't need this house in San Francisco anymore. You got to go. You got to move to your new job in Sweden. Who knows, right? Don't allow your realtors to pressure you or force you into anything you don't want to do. You have the power to change your mind at any point in time. It's your money, it's your home, it's your choice. So don't let any realtors be too pushy or aggressive ever. That's not a good quality of a good agent. You do not want that. And if they are, you can report them, you can call their broker, schedule a meeting, and also make sure you're documenting all of this in writing. You want to get a paper trail and just protect yourself on whatever end you're dealing with these quote unquote bad realtors. Next is just a lack of knowledge, right? You want your realtor to know about real estate. You want them to know about the market. You want them to give you the right advice. And maybe you as a buyer, seller, or investor don't know as much as you think they would know, but that's where the questioning comes into play, and you asking all the questions you need to ask. There's no such thing as a dumb question in this process. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to question, like, well, this doesn't make sense. Can you explain this to me? And if they avoid that or ignore you, that should be alarming to you. So it could be the most basic of questions. And mind you, we are humans. We are not perfect. And in this industry, rules and laws get updated and amended often. But if your realtor is quick to avoid you or dismiss your question or minimize the fact that you're curious about something, that is a red flag. For me, if I was in that situation where my client asked me a question that I did not know the answer to, I would simply be straightforward with them and say, hey, you know what? That's a good question. Let's look it up, or let me call my colleague, or let me get back to you. I don't want to rush into answering this question or give you some misinformation. I heard that this law or this compliance might have been updated, so let me do some extra research and get back to you. It's that simple. But like I said, if they're quick to just dismiss you or avoid the question, or even worse, tell you, oh, don't worry about that. You don't have to know that. You do. You want to know everything going on step by step throughout your transaction. And some realtors may say you are a difficult client or that you're a bad client. Why? Because you are curious and want to be fully invested and involved in the whole transaction. This is your money. Like I said, this is your money, your responsibility, your business. And if they are keeping you in the dark because they don't have an answer to a question, that's not on you, that's on them. And even though you've signed agreements and contracts with them, if you don't feel comfortable working with them or continuing on this working relationship throughout the transaction, find a way out. Like I said, you could contact the board, contact their broker. You might even have to hire an attorney. I hate to say that, but if you're dealing with a quote unquote bad realtor or someone that's just you're just not comfortable working with, I would consult with an attorney, see what your options are. You know, unfortunately, some contracts are just bound to the end that you can't get out of. But I also feel like there's a way out of everything. So the only way to find out is if you just explore all your options and don't take their BS, basically. So again, if they are avoiding answering any questions that appear to be simple questions that you just want a general understanding of, that's a red flag, you know. Or and it's okay to ask for a second opinion. You do want to trust your realtor and believe in them and have faith in them, of course. But if things seem to keep going wrong, it's important to step up and say something or do something different, do something about it, right? But ultimately, I will keep reiterating this, is you have power. You must advocate for yourself and stand up for yourself, and always be curious and always be asking questions, because there are no dumb questions in this process. And if they're not willing to repeat the same answers to you more than once, I would consider that a red flag as well, you know. But it's also your responsibility on the client side to say, you know, take what they say. You can also do your own due diligence, get a second opinion. But if they're right, they're right. And then you can just move on to the next questions you have. So finally, next red flag, I guess you could say, is just dishonesty and unethical behavior. Oh, this is scary. Anytime someone gets their real estate license or studies for the test or is just curious about the process, as soon as you open the book, the first page talks about your fiduciary duty, due diligence, risk management, all of the things, best practices, right? The rules are there for a reason. Whether you agree with them or not, they are there for a reason. And if your realtor is participating in unethical or illegal practices, you know, such as misrepresenting a property or withholding information from clients, which goes back to just poor communication, lacking professionalism, lacking knowledge, whatever the case may be, dishonesty or unethical behavior is a major red flag. And not only should you fire them, but they should have their license revoked. They shouldn't be practicing real estate at all. You don't want people like that in this industry ruining it for others. You know what I mean? You wonder why there's so many disclosures in real estate. It's because something was not disclosed, or something went wrong, or someone broke a law, and attorneys had to scramble and create a disclosure to warn you, like, hey, this has happened in the past and may occur again. Heads up. Sign this disclosure acknowledging that you were aware of these types of behaviors, these types of, you know, market conditions, statewide advisories. Those are in place for a reason, and that's why they show up repeatedly. But between you and your agent and in the relationship that you have agreed upon, you're bound by in writing, it is up to them to uphold the best behavior and be ethical and honest and true. Stuff happens. I've seen many transactions fall apart at the beginning, in the middle, and the end. But being honest is truly the best way to handle it. If you don't want to withhold information from your clients and say and lie and tell them, oh, the seller's going to work it out, they'll give you your deposit back, so go ahead and just cancel the deal. When in actuality, the seller is like, no, I'm not giving you the deposit back, and we're not going to close this deal, or we are going to close this deal no matter what. So it's important to stay in communication with everything going on in the transaction. If you don't hear from your agent, if you don't hear from your realtor for a long period of time, and this is a 30-day close, or maybe you have 90 days for them to sell your property, but you've only heard from them once or twice, that is a red flag. What are they hiding? Or maybe their time management is terrible, or maybe they're so arrogant they think that they don't have to talk to you. That is, to me, the worst kind of realtors. When I first started running my business, I was doing listing coordination, and I was working with this team. They're great, top producing team. They're pumping out listings just every 5 minutes. They kept me employed. They kept my business I was closing deals, multiple deals weekly because of them, which I appreciated. But eventually they let me go because I was working too slow for them. For me, the way I process files is I like to cross-check and cross-reference paperwork. Title on the tax records is different from title in a title report that comes directly from escrow. Sometimes tax records in the city is slow to update things, but escrow has it right there in writing. And when you request a prelim, whether it's a pre-sale or when you're in escrow, it can take a couple of business days, at the most, maybe a week. So when I was getting new listings from this team, the process is I must check the vesting, which means who is holding title, and put that exact name on the listing agreements, on the disclosures. Otherwise, we're going to have to amend and or redo everything, and they have to do everything twice. Or we have to provide additional disclosures, paperwork, because the names were wrong. That is like real estate 101. You don't want to sell a home and the names are all wrong on all the contracts. So what was happening is that I would get a new listing agreement, and these realtors expected me to send all of the disclosures to their seller on the spot. Well, one, as someone that, needs to manage their time, has boundaries, has a process, that has a ethical, honest process, that's not how I operated. And I told them several times, I was like, hey, you know what? I need to check the vesting before I could send this out. And they were like, who cares? Send it anyway. And what would happen when I would do that? Everything would have to get redone. And then what else would happen? Why didn't you tell me this happened? So unfortunately, they let me go before I could let them go. I was too caught up and they give me a lot of business. So for me, it was a good learning lesson because this was my first year of doing business, but it was a red flag. And as a TC as well, from our perspective, if a realtor is being, again, pushy and aggressive and not wanting you to follow the proper procedure, then personally, I wouldn't continue that working relationship. Or I would find a way to get on the same page and have them understand why you're doing this. Why am I waiting 2 to 3 days before I send any disclosures? Right? One, it creates double, triple the work for all of us. Then you look bad from your client's point of view of like, well, why do I have to fill out the same exact paperwork 2 to 3 times? Why do you keep sending me these same disclosures? And then it falls on the TC because, quote unquote, the TC never told me, or it's just easier for the agent to blame the TC. This has happened to me multiple times, and I'm just fed up. I'm done. I'm not taking on any more business from any realtors, from anyone. I don't care if you were my best friend's friend, sister, brother, cousin. I have my ways, you have your ways, and if they don't align, we're moving on. I'm no longer doing desperate business. It's just, it doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't align with my values. It doesn't align with my workflow. And I'm trying to save you. My job is to keep that file in compliance. So I can only imagine if I, on the back end of things, behind the scenes, is receiving this treatment. What are they saying to their clients? What are they saying to their buyers and sellers? So for anyone out there that is dealing with these types of realtors, I would love to hear from you. Are you still working with them? Have you dealt with them? It's a learning experience. You know, there are so many great realtors out there. And I will probably do like a green flags episode one day. But like I said, I'm coming out of this adrenaline rush of an interview that I just did. And the person I interviewed, she dealt with bad realtors and she didn't know what questions to ask. She didn't know she was allowed to ask questions. She didn't know that her agent was supposed to negotiate on her behalf, which is another point. If you don't agree with the price that is being offered to you, you can negotiate that. So let's just say, you know, you're a seller and you want to sell your home for $1 million, but maybe your agent is saying, no, let's sell it for 3 million. Well, how did they get to that number? As the seller, you want to ask your agent, how did you get to this number? Because maybe it's right. You want to do a comparative market analysis, a CMA. You want to see what other houses in the neighborhood have sold for in the last 6 months, year, week, right? That's what the MLS is for, the multiple listing services. Have your agent check, have them give you comps, comparables, versus them just throwing out this astronomical number that you have no idea why they even said that. Of course, yeah, 3 million sounds great, but if it doesn't make sense, because now you're inflating the neighborhood prices, which causes gentrification, which puts people out of, you know, homes and displaces them as well. It's this whole just bad trickle effect when people are greedy, or when they're pushy or aggressive or they're dishonest, right? So as a seller, again, you have the power to negotiate and to ask questions and to just verify or validate what's going on in your mind through your realtor. And if they're not willing to help you or meet you in the middle, that's a red flag and you should consider not working with them anymore. And again, from the buyer side, if you are looking at a home and all you can afford is, say, $500,000, but your realtor is like saying, no, I know this number is going to get the offer accepted. You have to bid it. You have to bid it. And if they're telling you to bid 800,000, but again, your budget is only 500,000, but they know about some extra money that you're saving for your kids' college tuition, right? And they force you and they're being aggressive and saying like, no, do 800,000. Again, a red flag. You don't want to be working with people that are forcing you beyond your comfort zone or beyond your boundaries or what you already established is like, no, this is my budget. I'm not going $1 above, a cent above that, you know, because a lot of people are money hungry. They're greedy. They're desperate. So they'll force you to think that that's the right decision. But if that doesn't sit well with you, then take a step back, Take a deep breath, think about it, pray on it, meditate on it, journal about it, talk to your therapist about it, get a second opinion, get their broker involved, get the board involved, hire an attorney, because no one should ever force you to spend more than you even have. And if you're not comfortable with what they're telling you, get out of that situation. And I know I kind of feel like I'm on repeat at this point, but it's true. You have the power to negotiate all the way down to the closing. If you want a credit for inspection, for work that needs to be done because the inspections came back with the home needing a lot of work. If a realtor never shows you the inspection reports, that's a red flag. So I could keep going on and on about this topic, but I just wanted to open the dialogue and see who else out there can relate to the situation. But just to recap, what makes a bad realtor, and this is just my opinion based off of my experiences. Not everyone is like this. I'm not knocking every single realtor. I'm just knocking the ones that I have come in contact with, who I've heard nightmare stories about. And in my 20 years of being in real estate, they exist. So just be careful. Do your own due diligence, your own research. What makes a good realtor to you, and stick to that. Stick to your values, stick to your intuition, listen to yourself, and you have so much more power than you probably even give yourself credit for. And even though they are the professionals, not everyone is built for this business. So with all of that said, let's recap. Poor communication skills, lack of professionalism. Of course, professionalism is subjective, but it's up to you to figure out what that means to you. But just make sure they're being kind overall to everyone. Pushy and aggressive behavior, lack of knowledge locally, statewide, whatever the case may be. And finally, just they're being dishonest or unethical. Like their behavior is just terrible. And they're constantly lying or doing illegal things to get you where you need to go, or withholding information from you. These are just a few red flags. But if this topic resonates with you, and if you made it to the end of this video, first of all, thank you. The end of this episode, first off, thank you. And if you have a story you want to tell, or if you want to elaborate on this topic, let's do it. I am more than willing to continue having more dialogue about this, because so many people don't know what a bad realtor is. And I want to save as many people as I can, or at least inform you and give you the awareness that you need in these situations, and that it happens. But if we can prevent this from happening even more often, I'll keep talking about it until the wheels fall off. So this has been another episode of the Transaction Care Podcast. And this is why I call my podcast Transaction Care, because I care for all of you. I care for our money. Like I care for yourself, care for your wealth. That is one of the slogans. And I mean that. And this is a part of the whole process of caring and just getting really real about real estate and telling you guys the ugly parts of it, and not just the glamorous, sexy parts of real estate. Yeah, that's awesome. Commissions, 10xing your investments, your ROI, all of that. That's beautiful. And it is possible. Owning real estate is great. But if there's someone within that process that is making it hell for you, I just want to give you guys some just awareness of what to look out for, so you don't have to deal with this, or you can learn from our mistakes and have the best, most easeful business transactions possible. So with all that said, this has been another episode of the Transaction Care Podcast. My name is Lillian Hernandez, aka Lily like the flower, because we are learning and growing together. I am your host and resident care coordinator. My goal with each episode is to demystify the business of real estate, and I hope you leave empowered and ready to start your journey today. If you have any questions and you want to get in contact with me, go to transactioncarepodcast.com, submit your name and your email, join my TC community. We're awesome. It is the best way to communicate with me more directly, more often. I do send a TC weekly newsletter, which you get a lot more behind the scenes action. You get what's going on in my personal life and my business first before it even goes public. You get to find out when I'm dropping products and merch. You can also buy merch if you use the word care. You get a 10% discount at checkout. But everything goes down within my TC community. I will be releasing more products soon come, so stay tuned. That is the best way, is just to join my supporters, my community. They are awesome. We're small but mighty and still growing. And new episodes drop every Monday. So thank you for tuning in. I want to grow this podcast and get more listeners and expand my audience. And the only way to do that is if we work together. So if you're listening to this, please text this episode to a friend, tell a friend, or repost it to my social media at Transaction Care across all platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you're at, I'm at too. So I'll see you in these social media streets. But the best way to support me freely, you know, if you're on a budget or you just don't know how to support your faves, is through social media, reposting to your stories, liking, comment, sharing. All of that matters. It really does. And thank you again for tuning in every single week. I truly do appreciate all of you. But this is just a dialogue I've been wanting to have, and it finally manifested, and here we are. So until the next episode, I'm giving you the keys. There are no gatekeepers here. Care for yourself, care for your wealth. Your time is worth it. Let's coordinate. Talk soon.